2.5 years after walking away from the BJP and allying with the Congress and NCP, Uddhav Thackeray's days as Chief Minister of Maharashtra seem to be numbered. A majority of the Shiv Sena's MLAs have rebelled against their party chiefs. Break away from this alliance with the Congress and NCP, say the rebels sitting in Guwahati. Come back and talk to us face to face, says the camp led by the Thackeray family in Mumbai. Where is the situation in Maharashtra headed next? Joining us to talk about this and the political situation as it is developing around us is Vaibhav Purandare, the deputy resident editor at the Times of India and the author of the book by Thackeray and the Rise of the Shiv Sena. Vaibhav, thank you very much for making time for BQ Prime's viewers. Is it now a foregone conclusion that there will be a change of government in Maharashtra?
Thank you, Kaushik. It does look like a change of government is imminent. It's a matter of time now. In the next couple of days, we should be able to see parties taking claim to form the government. And the numbers clearly are on Eknath Shinde's side, on the side of the rebel faction of the Shiv Sena. And Uddhav Thackeray's Sena and Uddhav Thackeray's government both appear to have been reduced to a minority at the moment. So yes, a change in government is going to happen soon in Maharashtra. We will see a little bit of the legal and constitutional battle play out. But the way the numbers are stacked up at the moment, things are going only in one direction.
That was going to be my next question. What are the legal avenues that you see both sides following, particularly those that are trying to keep power? There are very clear tenets of the 85 Act about defection, how much a party needs to keep or a grouping needs to keep.
Right.
On the other side, what is the legal strategy that the Thackeray camp is likely to play out from?
We can actually see the legal strategy unfolding now. The first few steps, in fact, have been taken because the Shiv Sena yesterday sent a letter to the Deputy Speaker of the Assembly asking him to disqualify the 12 rebel MLAs, the first list, who are on the first list of the rebels. The deputy speaker seems to be in a mood to disqualify them and also to recognize the person Ajay Chaudhary appointed by the Uddhav Thackeray faction of the Shiv Sena as the legislature party chief and his person as the chief whip of the party in the assembly. So the deputy speaker seems to be following what the MVA government wants. And to take decisions and make moves that will block the new political formation in some way possible.
Okay.
The other immediate next move will be to disqualify the other rebels also, because the rebels have really swelled in numbers and they've now gone well beyond, in fact, the figure of 37, which Eknath Shinde's camp needed to avoid the provisions of the anti-defection law. So a party to effect a split needs 2/3 of its MLAs to get out. And Eknath Shinde now has the numbers. Last night itself, he had 37 MLAs signing a letter and sending it to the Deputy Assembly Speaker asking that it be recognized as a group and as the real Shiv Sena in the House. So this is the way the legal battle has now begun. Eknath Shinde's option, if the deputy speaker stalls any forward movement on the formation of a new government, is to move the courts and ensure that he gets a ruling in his favor and in his group's favor. But that will happen only if the deputy speaker of the assembly consistently blocks all their moves. Now they still have to have more communication to send to the assembly speaker and the deputy speaker and the governor. They will have letters to send, they will have affidavits to send, and then
all of this going out to the floor of the House and to the deputy speaker, since there isn't a full-time speaker. Parallelly, is there any action that is expected to happen in approaches to the governor of the state?
Yes, Kaushik, you are absolutely right. Parallelly, there will be political parties getting ready with letters and letters of support to stake claim to form a new government. And those with the letter who will want to support the government, that is the Eknath Shinde camp, and join the government together. So what Eknath Shinde obviously is seeking is a restoration of the mandate of 2019, which is the BJP Shiv Sena mandate. So those letters will also go to the governor, and the governor will also have to look at proceedings very, very closely. I'm sure he would be, because there is a mood of speculation in Maharashtra about whether this government truly enjoys a majority or not. And this speculation cannot go on indefinitely or for several days. So the governor will also have to decide in the next couple of days about what he needs to do in order to send across a message to the state's population, and also to satisfy himself that there is a government that actually enjoys a majority on the floor of the assembly. So his move is going to be to ask the government to establish its majority on the floor of the house, and if he fears that it been reduced to a minority, again to do the same thing, to ask it to establish its majority, and on the floor of the house it will be very clear who has the numbers.
Sure. And that's the only place where the numbers stand. It has to stand.
Absolutely. It's only on the floor of the house that everything's going to be decided. It will not be decided outside. Now, these legal battles will continue for a while, perhaps. But the way the numbers are going, it's really an uphill task for the Sharad Pawar and Uddhav Thackeray camp.
Unlike what happened in Karnataka a year and a half ago, and bigger pardon, 2.5 years ago, and in Madhya Pradesh about 2 years ago, this one, the BJP is not showed an active stepping in and doing this, sending people here or there. So behind the scenes, how's the BJP been able to manage this? What have you been finding out about what Devendra Fadnavis, what Chandrakant Patil, what other leaders of the BJP in the state have been up to these last 6-7 days? The moment there was a point where in the Rajya Sabha they got to win that they didn't think they would. In the MLC elections, they got to win that they didn't think they would. And they managed to get some cross-voting. And what went underway around that time? What have you heard, and what are your teams reporting on what the BJP leaders have been up to?
The BJP leadership in Maharashtra has been extremely careful about the way it's going about the whole thing. And the reason for that is very simple. In 2019, there was this experiment of an early morning swearing in, which ended up in an acute embarrassment for Devendra Fadnavis. And he admits it was a big embarrassment. And they ended up joining hands with the Ajit Pawar group of the NCP. And as we know, all the legislators, including Ajit Pawar, immediately went back to the NCP and left that government. And it proved to be a very short-lived government. So this time, the BJP is being extra careful and ensuring that all loose ends are tied up, and ensuring that the rebels are together as a cohesive unit and do not wobble at the last moment or turn shaky at the last moment. And also they want to tie up all legal and constitutional loose ends as well, in terms of letters of support, in terms of affidavits, and all of that. And I think both sides, if you look at Devendra Fadnavis and if you look at Eknath Shinde, have played their cards very, very well at this time. Because the BJP leadership has been completely quiet. They have, in fact, been saying that they have nothing to do with this. This is an internal Sena rebellion, and it's for the Sena to sort things out. So, on the one hand, they have been distancing themselves from this whole drama. On the other hand, Eknath Shinde has been very intelligently not making any unnecessary statements, being very careful in what he's saying. Obviously, he's got a battery of lawyers with which we can presume that the big political power that he referred to yesterday is helping him. He has a battery of lawyers to help him in every respect. To give an example of how that battery of lawyers is really guiding the whole team, yesterday, within absolutely minutes of the Shiv Sena sending a letter to the Deputy Assembly Speaker saying that 12 MLAs should be disqualified, Eknath Shinde's tweet was up talking about Schedule 10 of the Constitution and how, a decision taken at a meeting does not matter, but a whip has to be followed on the floor of the house. So proceedings in the house are important. You cannot disqualify us on this ground. And he's saying that actually it's your group that's illegal, and we demand your disqualification instead. So
Mhm.
all of this is a
That's what's happening behind the scenes, is what you're saying.
absolutely. So all of this is a sign of very careful and meticulous preparation.
Mhm.
It's not an overnight preparation. It's a preparation that's obviously gone on for some time
Mhm.
and over a period of months.
Mhm.
And it has culminated in a sense in the Rajya Sabha election results, in the Vidhan Parishad or Legislative Council election results, where people cross-voted from the ruling Mahavikas Aghadi and from the Shiv Sena as well. And ultimately, on the evening of the Vidhan Sabha election polls, the rebellion that broke out and Eknath Shinde's Surat raid, if you could call it.
Mhm. Okay, so then to sum this up, to take a slightly higher view of the events as they played out now and how they built into for the last few years into this.
Yeah.
We've seen the BJP been able to get to power even when it's fallen short in some states. The two I mentioned, there was Karnataka and there was Madhya Pradesh in this cycle. There was Manipur, Goa, Arunachal Pradesh in the last cycle.
Right.
But they were all ones where parts of other parties had rebellions, broke, and then perhaps joined hands with the BJP. Does this mark a milestone in that if this ends out with the Shinde faction moving in its current state towards the BJP, that the BJP has acquired a party while keeping out its leader?
Actually, Kaushik, that is exactly what it's coming to. You have summed it up very correctly, that it's actually almost as if the entire party has moved out.
Hmm.
And while the signs were all there, that there was tremendous discontent in the Shiv Sena in the last 2.5 years, and while there were internal tensions and a complete lack of cohesion within the Mahavikas Aghadi alliance, while people had anticipated that there might be a split, the numbers are staggering, absolutely. And the manner in which the desertion has happened, I'm not even sure whether we should call it a split. It's actually an exodus, and
Exactly.
it's an implosion.
Hmm.
It's an implosion the way Indira Gandhi took away the entire party from the syndicate at one point in time.
Hmm.
So this is quite a political earthquake that's happened.
Hmm.
But I must tell you that the signs were all there. In fact,
Okay.
the writing was on the wall.
Hmm.
There were two reasons for it. One was the ideological incompatibility of the
Hmm.
alliance.
Hmm.
Uh, but that is fine. All parties do these opportunistic tie-ups. The PDP tied up with the BJP, and the BJP tied up with the PDP in
Hmm.
Kashmir,
Hmm.
and all sorts of these alliances take place all over the place across India. So the Shiv Sena is hardly the first party to have latched on to this kind of thing or to have initiated this kind of thing.
Hmm.
But having done that, every party figures out that there are trade-offs there, and there is a level of compromise that it must decide on, and it draws certain lines. Um, my feeling is that the Shiv Sena led by Uddhav Thackeray in the Mahavikas Aghadi alliance got completely carried away
Hmm.
uh, by by the influence of certain elements in the MVA alliance,
Mhm.
and completely lost its moorings. The
Okay.
party lost its moorings. I'll give you an example of what I mean. Now, see the Marathi middle class constituency, which supports the Shiv Sena, whether it's in Mumbai or other urban areas or small towns or elsewhere, they are deeply sympathetic to the plight of Kashmiri Hindus who have been forced to migrate from the valley. Okay. Uh, there is a movie that recently released which talks about the plight of Kashmiri Pandits and their exodus.
Mhm.
Now, a Shiv Sena sympathizer, a Shiv Sena voter, a Shiv Sena karyakarta or voter or a worker, and a Shiv Sena functionary and legislator will all be deeply sympathetic to that movie.
Mhm.
What does the Shiv Sena leadership do? It attacks the movie.
Mhm.
So
And
that
then goes
becomes
on and takes action against the runners.
exactly. Now, even where you are talking about the Hanuman Chalisa Rao, now Shiv Sena is the party that actually became famous for uh, carrying out Maha Aartis on Mumbai streets. And then it arrests the Rana MP MLA couple and makes a rather audacious ideological overreach
Mhm.
by actually arresting them and putting them behind bars. Now,
Mhm.
this creates a lot of discomfort within the Shiv Sena and among its following.
Mhm.
So this is where they cross the line consistently. They also lampooned the and criticized and attacked the scrapping of Article 370. They consistently attacked PM Modi and the BJP, not realizing that Modi and the BJP are not the problem for the Shiv Sena voter.
Okay.
It is Sharad Pawar's NCP and Sonia Gandhi's Congress that are a problem for the Shiv Sena voter.
Okay.
So there is this ideological incoherence, and that has always been there.
So
So
it is
the,
this moment that's created this situation that Eknath Shinde has been able to lead, is what you're saying. Because a lot of people in the last 4 days have asked, saying, what has Eknath Shinde done that Chhagan Bhujbal could not do, that Narayan Rane could not do, that Raj Thackeray could not do? Saying,
absolutely.
ye baadi kya hua? So you're saying all
That's
what
what
you
I'm
explained,
getting to.
all of what
So
you
what
explained.
I'm getting to, Kaushik, is that this is not the only reason. There's a combination of reasons. One is this ideological incompatibility and the discomfort in the Sena camp with the kind of positions that the party is suddenly taking and going overboard in taking those positions. And the second factor that comes in is the manner of functioning of the Shiv Sena leadership in the MBA government and the perceived inaccessibility of Uddhav Thackeray, his son Aditya Thackeray, and the coterie around them, and the allocation of funds to NCP and Congress MLAs, which Shiv Sena MLAs have been complaining about. And Shiv Sena legislators are deeply uncomfortable with the kind of leverage that the NCP has over the new Shiv Sena leadership.
Hmm.
So they are getting all the funds, they are getting all the projects, and they are being seen by the Shiv Sainiks as the real ideological and political adversaries. So, what hope were they going to have for 2024? They were really worried, which is why you see that a majority of the MLAs have gone over to the other side.
Hmm.
A bulk of the MLAs have gone. A lot of people have been saying that, oh, ED action, they are worried about ED action. That's why they've gone over. That can
That doesn't explain
no
40
that action can explain the
So,
behavior of maybe 4 or 5 MLAs. But what does a rural MLA from the Shiv Sena have to do with ED action? Nothing.
hmm.
Or even an urban MLA who is not under the ED scanner. How is
Hmm.
it that your entire party has left? That's
Hmm.
because this ideological incompatibility was always there, and things were made much worse by the inaccessibility of the leadership and the failure of the leadership to ensure that adequate funds were allocated to Shiv Sena constituency.
All right. So
The legislators were really worried. About,
interesting.
yeah.
No, because there is an assembly election to come, and there is also a deferred BMC election that some point needs to be held pending court
Uh,
movement.
no,
Because
in fact, the Kaushik, there is the BMC election is the most crucial for the Shiv Sena.
exactly.
And there are elections to Thane, Kalyan Dombivli, Navi Mumbai. There are elections to 20 civic corporations across the state.
Hmm.
So Shiv Sena workers, functionaries, elected representatives have been worried all over the place. And what you see is a reflection of those grievances and concerns.
All right. So thank you for explaining all what's been at play, not just these last few days, but what's led to it and how it will go from here. Vaibhav, thank you very much for making time for BQ Prime viewers. We hope to stay in touch and connect perhaps in a few days as this moves forward and to get a sense of what you make of how this plays out from here. If you have been watching, thank you.
Thank you, Kaushik. Thanks a lot.